Assalamualaikum. I am Mian from BB19 University in Islam. Today I am here for the presentation which is assigned by Sir Sani. The contents of presentation are: number 1, what is oral communication and its types; number 2, what are the 7 elements of communication process; number 3, what are the 5 types of speech style or communication style; number 4, the main parts of any speech. Number 1 topic is what is oral communication and its types. How we can define communication. Communication is a process that concerns an exchange of ideas and facts between two or more entities to achieve a mutual idea. The communication process is both static and dynamic because there is a continuous interaction where both parts are influenced, and static because there are certain rules to obtain an effective communication. What is oral communication? In our special case where there is communication between a possible client and a company, the communication is mostly static. Since we have to follow certain rules and be an emblematic ambassador for the brand we represent, we have to adopt a certain language and attitude and principles, and we have to obtain a good feedback. This is why our experts in communication are staying in touch daily with news from this domain and adopt their methods accordingly. The types of oral communication. There are 4 main types of communication we use on a daily basis: verbal, non-verbal, written and visual. Let's take a look at each of these types of communication, why they are important and how you can improve them for success in your area. Number 1, verbal. Verbal communication is the use of language to transfer information through speaking or sign language. It is the one of the most common types, often used during presentations, video conferences and phone calls, meeting and one-on-one conversations. Verbal communication is important because it is efficient. It can be helpful to support verbal communication with both non-verbal and written communication. Here are a few steps you can take to develop your verbal communication skills. Use a strong, confident speaking voice, especially when presenting information to a few or group of people. Be sure to use a strong voice so that everyone can easily hear you. Be confident when speaking so that your ideas are clear and easy for others to understand. Use active listening. The other side of using verbal communication is intently listening to and hearing others. Active listening skills are key when conducting a meeting, presentation, or even when participating in a one-on-one conversation. Doing so will help you grow as a communicator. Avoid filter words. It can be tempting, especially during a presentation, to use filter words such as like, so, yeah. While it might feel natural after completing a sentence or passing collect your thoughts, it can also be distracting for your audience. Try presenting to a trusted friend or colleague who can call attention to the times you use filter words. Try to replace them by taking a break when you are tempted to use them. Non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is the use of body language, gestures and facial expressions to convey information to others. It can be used both intentionally and unintentionally. For example, you might smile unintentionally when you hear a pleasing or enjoyable idea or piece of information. Non-verbal communication is helpful when trying to understand others' thoughts and feelings. If they are displaying closed body language such as crossed arms or hands, shoulders, they might be feeling anxious, angry or nervous. If they are displaying open body language with both feet on the floor and arms by their side or on table, they are likely feeling positive and open to information. Here are a few steps you can take to develop your non-verbal communication skills. Notice how your emotions feel physically throughout the day as you experience identify where you feel that emotion within your body. For example, if you are feeling anxious, you might notice that your stomach feels tight. Developing self-awareness around how your emotions affect your body can give you greater mastery over your external presentation. Be intentional about your non-verbal communications. Make an effort to display positive body language when you feel alert, open and positive about your surroundings. You can also use body language to support your verbal communication. If you feel confused or anxious about information, like using furrowed brow, use body language alongside verbal communication, such as asking follow-up questions or pulling the presenter aside to give feedback. Written. Written communication is an act of writing, typing or printing symbols like letters and numbers to convey information. It is helpful because it provides a record of information for reference. Writing is commonly used to share information through books, pamphlets, blogs, letters, memos, and more. Email and charts are the common form of written communication and work. There are a few steps you can take to develop your written communication skills. Number 1. Strive for simplicity. Written communication should be simple and clear as possible, while it might be helpful to include lots of detail and instructional communications. For example, you should look for areas where you can write as clearly as possible for your audience to understand. Don't rely on tone, because you do not have knowledge of verbal or non-verbal communications. Be careful when you are trying to communicate a certain tone when writing. For example, attempting to communicate a joke, sarcasm or excitement might be translated differently depending on the audience. Instead, try to keep your writing as simple and plain as possible and follow up with verbal communications where you can add more personalism. Take time to review your written communications. Setting time aside to reread your emails, letters or memos can help you identify mistakes or opportunities to say something differently. For important communications are those that will be sent to a large number of people, it might be helpful to have a trusted colleague review it as well. Keep a file of writing you find effective or enjoyable. If you receive a certain pamphlet, email or memo that find particularly helpful or interesting, save it for reference when writing your own communications, incorporating methods or styles you like can help to improve more time. Number 4 type of oral communication is visual. Visual communication is an act of using photographs or drawings, sketches, charts and graphs to convey information. Visuals are often used as an aid during presentations to provide helpful context alongside written and non-verbal communication. Because people have different learning styles, visual communication might be more helpful for some time to consume ideas and information. Here are a few steps you can take to develop your visual communication skills. Ask others before including visuals. If you are considering sharing a visual ad in your presentation or email, consider asking others for feedback. Adding visuals can sometimes make concepts confusing or dull. Getting a third-party perspective can help you decide whether the visual adds value to your communication. Consider your audience. Be sure to include visuals that are easily understood by your audience. For example, if you are displaying chart with unfamiliar data, be sure to take time and explain what is happening in the visual and how it relates to what you are saying. You should never use sensitive, offensive, violent or graphic visuals in any form. What are the 7 elements of communication process? Number 1 is sender. The person who approaches our services with the intention of getting an answer to his or her questions or passing feedback. Number 2 is the idea. The pause ideas are the subject matter of this action. These can represent attitudes, opinions, views, feelings, suggestions, complaints, or questions. Number 3 is encoding. Encoding represents the conversion of subject matter in certain symbols. Here things get complicated because most people use their own definition for certain emotions or ideas. The way they put these in sentence offers a view over their type of listening. Number 4 is communication channel. Online communication channel is the chat window. There are certain techniques that we will discuss in future articles. We use to warm the discussion or transmit a certain feeling about it, so that the sender will not remain with the idea that the communication was cold and the specialist is not involved in the solving his or her problem. Number 5 is receiver. The receiver is a member of our team whose main activity is to solve clients' problems and represent your brand. In the mind of sender, we will not talk with the human who drinks, sleep or rest children like all of us, but to a brand. This is why in our case, the receiver is fictional entity and will have to behave accordingly. What are the 5 types of speech style or communicative style? The types of speech style in this topic, we will now discuss about the 5 different types of speech style or communicative style. But first, let us know what is speech style. According to Morton Jews 1976, a linguist and German professor, it refers to the form of language that a speaker utilizes which is characterized by the level of formality. It accordingly to Jews' speech style is identified into 5 types: frozen, formal, consultative, casual, and intimate. Number 1, frozen style, also known as fixed speech. It is the highest form of communicative style, which is often used in respectful situations or formal ceremonies like Shakespearean plays, weddings, funerals, and more. It uses the complex grammatical sentence structure and vocabulary that are only known by experts in that field. Number 2 is formal style. This style uses formal words and expressions and is mostly seen in the writing rather than speaking. It also disallows the use of ellipses, contractions, and qualifying and modal adverbals. Number 3, consultative style. The third level of language, it is basically unplanned speech since the speaker uses the participation and feedback of the listener. The speaker will supply background information while again and the listener participates continuously. 4, casual style, also known as informal style. It is usually used between friends or even insiders who have things to share. In this style, there is a free and easy participation of both speaker and listener. Number 5 is intimate style. The last type is used in talks between two very close individuals. It is described by an economy of words with a high chance of non-verbal communication. Like casual, there is also a free and easy participation of both speaker and listener. The main parts of any speech. All speeches contain at least 3 parts: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. In the introduction, you state the topic of your speech. You tell the audience the main points of your speech. In other words, you say what you are going to speak about. In the body, you speak about each point in detail. For each point, you must give the audience more evidence or information that will help explain and support each point. The body is the longest of the 3 parts. In conclusion, you should summarize the main points of your speech and emphasize what you want the audience to remember. Making a simple outline. An outline is a way to organize your ideas logically and clearly. Without making an outline, your speech will probably lack structure and so be difficult to understand. By using a presentation outline, you can see the structure of your speech. In addition, it can also speaking skill. In addition, it can also serve as your speaking spirit. The following presentation outline is a very simple way to organize your material into a speech format. If have time, you should look at the detailed speech outline. When making an outline, you should not write full sentence, but just keywords and phrases. Number 1, introduction. What is the topic of your speech? Why should the audience listen to your speech? What will your main points to be? Number 2, the body. What are your main points and ideas? What is your supporting evidence and information? Number 3, the conclusion. What were the main points of your speech and what do you want the audience to remember?